Jake Morrison pulled his jacket tighter as he walked through the cold corridors of the stellar dawn. The ship hummed quietly around him, its engines pushing them deeper into the Kepler sector. He had been a salvage captain for 12 years now, and he knew good business when he saw it. The debris field they were approaching was huge, filled with the twisted remains of ships from wars fought long before he was born. "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings up ahead," called Lissa Park from the engineering station. She was young but smart, the kind of engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "There's something big out there, maybe 3 kilometers long." Jake nodded and moved to the bridge windows. Space stretched out before them, dark and cold, filled with floating chunks of metal and frozen debris. But there, in the distance, he could see something different. It was massive, much larger than anything else in the field. "Ryan, get me a better look at that thing," Jake said to his communications officer. Ryan Webb was good with the sensors, better than most people twice his age. "Running a full scan now, Captain," Ryan replied, his fingers dancing over the control panel. The main screen flickered to life, showing them a clearer picture of what lay ahead. Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a modern carrier, but it looked nothing like the sleek vessels they were used to seeing. This one was built like a fortress, all thick armor plating and heavy weapons. Its hull was scarred with battle, damage, but it was clearly human in design. "That's impossible," Lisa whispered, staring at the readings on her screen. "That design is ancient. I'm talking maybe 200 years old. Can you identify it?" Jake asked. Ryan worked his magic with the computer systems, cross-referencing the ship's design against historical databases. After a few minutes, he looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, I think that's the UES Defiance." It was a dreadnought-class warship from the early colonial wars. According to records, it was lost during the Battle of Titan's Gate in 2205. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The early colonial wars were the stuff of legends, brutal conflicts when humanity first reached for the stars and found that the universe was not a friendly place. Ships from that era were built for one purpose: to fight and win against terrible odds. "Is it dead?" he asked. "Appears to be," Ryan said. "No power readings, no life signs. It's been drifting here for who knows how long." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Take us in closer. If that really is the Defiance, there might be valuable salvage aboard. Those old ships were built with materials we don't even use anymore." The stellar dawn moved carefully through the debris field, avoiding the larger chunks of twisted metal. As they got closer to the ancient warship, Jake could see just how massive it really was. The Defiance was a monster, built during a time when humans believed that bigger and stronger was always better. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange readings," Ryan said, frowning at his instruments. "There's something active inside that ship." "Active how?" Jake asked. "I'm not sure. It's like there's still power somewhere deep inside, but it's so faint I can barely detect it." Lisa looked up from her station. "Captain, those old ships had backup systems that could run for centuries on minimal power. If the main reactors went offline, but the emergency systems stayed active, then there might still be someone alive on that ship," Jake finished. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. If there were survivors from the colonial wars still aboard that ship, they would be living pieces of history. But they would also be people who had lived through some of the most brutal conflicts in human history. "Ryan, try to establish communication," Jake ordered. Ryan adjusted his equipment and sent out a standard hailing frequency toward the ancient ship. For several minutes, there was nothing but static. Then suddenly, the silence was broken by a sound that made everyone on the bridge freeze. It was the deep, resonant hum of massive engines coming online. "Captain, that ship is powering up," Lisa said, her voice tight with concern. "Reactor signatures are climbing fast." Through the bridge windows, they could see lights beginning to flicker on along the Defiance's hull. The ship was waking up after nearly 2 centuries of sleep, and it was an impressive sight. Weapon systems that had been dark for generations began to glow with power. "This is the U.E.'s Defiance, Admiral Patricia Kane commanding," came a voice over the communication system. It was crisp and professional, but there was something in it that spoke of endless battles and hard-won victories. "Identify yourself." Jake found his voice. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the salvage vessel Stellar Dawn. Admiral, we thought your ship was lost." There was a pause, then the voice came again, softer this time. "Captain Morrison, what year is it?" 2387, Mom." Another long pause. 182 years. "Atlas, run a full system diagnostic. I want to know what condition we're in." "Atlas?" Jake asked. "My ship's artificial intelligence," Admiral Kane replied. "He's been keeping me alive in cryogenic suspension while maintaining minimal ship functions. Captain, I need you to understand something. The Defiance was not built for exploration or trade. We are a warship designed for one purpose: to destroy our enemies completely." Lisa looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. Ships from the colonial wars were legendary for their firepower and their willingness to use it. "Admiral, the wars ended a long time ago," Jake said carefully. "Humanity has spread across dozens of star systems. We've built a peaceful civilization." "Peace is a luxury, Captain," Admiral Kane replied. "It only lasts until someone decides to take it away from you. Atlas, what are our sensor readings showing?" The ship's II responded in a calm, mechanical voice. "Admiral, I am detecting multiple human vessels in the surrounding area, but also something else. Long-range sensors are picking up a large fleet moving toward the inner colonies. Configuration unknown, but they are not human." Jake felt his blood run cold. "Admiral, what kind of fleet?" "The kind that doesn't send diplomatic messages first," Admiral Kane said grimly. "Captain Morrison, I strongly suggest you contact your military forces and warn them. If these unknowns are hostile, your peaceful civilization is about to face its first real test." Ryan was already working his communication equipment, trying to reach the nearest military outpost. After a few minutes, he managed to establish contact with the Terran Defense Force Command Center. "This is Captain Morrison reporting a possible hostile fleet approaching the inner colonies," Jake said into the microphone. "We have reason to believe they may be extremely dangerous." The response was immediate. Fleet Admiral Gregory Collins himself came on the line. "Captain, what exactly are you seeing out there?" Before Jake could answer, Admiral Kane's voice cut through the communication. "Admiral Collins, this is Admiral Patricia Kane of the U.E.'s Defiance. I suggest you mobilize every ship you have and prepare for the worst. If these aliens are anything like the ones we fought in the old days, your modern fleet won't be enough." There was stunned silence from the other end of the communication. Everyone in the modern military knew the name Patricia Kane. She was a legend, the admiral who had won the Battle of Titan's Gate and saved the early colonies from destruction. "Admiral Kane, we thought you were dead," Collins finally said. "I was sleeping, Admiral, but now I'm awake, and if there's going to be a fight, the Defiance will be ready for it." As if to emphasize her point, the ancient warship's weapon systems came fully online, their energy signatures blazing across every sensor screen in the area. The Defiance was awake, and it remembered how to fight. Commander Vexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the ethereal spear, watching the stars blur past as his fleet moved through hyperspace. His tall, thin frame was perfectly still, but his 4 eyes glowed with the cold light of someone who had never known defeat. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered 17 star systems, and each victory had been swift and total. "Commander, we will arrive at the human colonies in 6 hours," reported his tactical officer, Kalanara. Her voice carried the same confidence that filled every member of the hegemony fleet. "Their technology appears primitive compared to ours." Vexthul nodded slowly. The humans were just another species that had grown too comfortable, too soft. Their ships were fast and efficient, but they had been built for trade and exploration, not for real warfare. The hegemony had studied them for months, watching their patrol patterns and analyzing their weapons. It would be over quickly. "How many ships do they have in this sector?" he asked. 47 vessels, including their flagship carrier. "They call it the Horizon's Edge," Kalanara replied. "Their largest ship is less than half the size of our smallest destroyer." Vexthul allowed himself a thin smile. The humans would learn what every other species had learned, that the universe belonged to those strong enough to take it. Meanwhile, in the human colony of New Boston, Fleet Admiral Gregory Collins was having the worst day of his military career. The warning from Captain Morrison and the mysterious Admiral Kane had reached him, just as his sensors picked up the approaching alien fleet. 43 ships were moving toward human space with clear hostile intent. "Admiral, we have confirmation," reported Captain Helen Rodriguez from the bridge at the Horizon's Edge. She was a capable officer, experienced in peacekeeping missions and anti-piracy operations. But this was different. This was war. Unknown fleet, estimated strength of over 100 vessels. "They're big, Admiral. Much bigger than anything we have." Collins felt sweat on his forehead as he looked at the tactical display. The human fleet looked tiny compared to what was coming. The Terran Defense Force had been built to handle pirates and smugglers, not an invasion fleet. "Captain Rodriguez, I want every ship we have formed up in defensive positions around New Boston. If they want our colony, they'll have to go through." "U.S. Yes, sir," Rodriguez replied, but Collins could hear the doubt in her voice. She was smart enough to know they were outgunned. The human fleet took position, their sleek ships forming a protective wall around the colony. The vessels were beautiful, examples of modern engineering, with smooth hulls and energy shields that shimmered like soap bubbles. Their weapons were precise pulse cannons designed to disable rather than destroy. Perfect for police work, but not for desperate battles. Collins opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Collins. We don't know what these aliens want, but we're going to show them that humanity doesn't back down from a fight. Stay sharp, stay together, and remember that every person on New Boston is counting on us." The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a nightmare made real. Their ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen, long and graceful with hulls that seemed to shift and change in the light. They moved in perfect formation, over 100 vessels arranged in attack patterns that spoke of centuries of conquest. "Commander," Vexthul studied the human formation with interest. Their ships were arranged in a standard defensive pattern, exactly what the hegemony had expected. The humans were predictable, following the same tactics that every other primitive species used. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Standard plasma bombardment. Let's finish this quickly." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into a killing field. Plasma cannons sent streams of superheated matter racing toward the human ships, while phase disruptors prepared to tear through any defenses the humans might have. Captain Rodriguez watched the alien weapons approaching and felt her heart sink. The energy readings were off the charts, far beyond anything her ships could handle. "All vessels, evasive maneuvers. Activate shields and prepare for impact." The human ships scattered, their pilots pushing the engines to maximum power. But they were not fast enough. The first wave of plasma fire struck the outer ships in the formation, and the results were devastating. The energy shields that had seemed so advanced moments before collapsed like paper in a hurricane. The TDF destroyer, Marcus Cole, took a direct hit to its main reactor. The explosion was visible from the surface of New Boston, a brief star that flared and died in the cold of space. 12 other ships followed in the first 30 seconds of combat. "Admiral, we're losing ships fast," Rodriguez reported, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Their weapons are cutting through our shields. Like they're not even there." Collins watched his fleet being torn apart and felt something die inside him. These aliens were not just more advanced than humans. They were fighting on a completely different level. It was like watching children with sticks try to fight soldiers with machine guns. "All ships, begin emergency withdrawal," he ordered. The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but he could not watch his people die for nothing. Fall back to Rally Point Delta. The surviving human ships turned and ran, their engines straining to escape the alien weapons. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet advanced with calm precision, picking off stragglers with casual efficiency. Commander Vexthil was satisfied with the result. The humans were fleeing exactly as predicted, their formation broken and their will to fight destroyed. In 1 hour, they had lost more than half their fleet. "Pursue them," he ordered. "Destroy any ship that attempts to resist." But as the hegemony fleet moved to finish off the retreating humans, something unexpected happened. A new contact appeared on their sensors, massive and moving toward them with purpose. "Commander, unknown vessel approaching," Kalinara reported. "It's enormous, but the design is primitive. Hull composition suggests it's very old." Vexthal looked at the tactical display with mild interest. The ship was indeed massive, larger than anything in his own fleet, but it looked like something from a museum. Its hull was thick and crude, covered with weapon systems that belonged to a much earlier era of warfare. Probably a human museum. "Ship or cargo hauler," he said dismissively. "Destroy it and continue the pursuit." The Defiance moved through space like an ancient titan awakening from sleep. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the alien fleet that had just destroyed half of the human force. She had been fighting for over 40 years, and she recognized the signs of an enemy that had grown overconfident. "Atlas, analysis of enemy weapons and tactics," she ordered. "Admiral, the aliens are using plasma-based energy weapons and some form of phase technology that allows them to bypass conventional energy shields," the AI reported. "Their ships appear to be optimized for fighting enemies who rely on speed and energy defenses." Kane smiled grimly. The Defiance had been built to fight a very different kind of war. During the colonial period, humanity's enemies had used energy weapons and advanced shields, just like these aliens. Every system on her ship had been designed to counter exactly this kind of threat. "Weapons Officer Chun, load kinetic rounds in all railgun batteries," she commanded. "Lisa, I want maximum power to armor plating. We're going to show these aliens what real human warfare looks like." The Defiance accelerated toward the alien fleet, its massive engines pushing it faster than something so large should be able to. "Move." The Zephyrian ships turned to meet this new threat, their plasma weapons charging for what they assumed would be an easy kill. "Commander." Vexthal watched the ancient human ship approach and felt only contempt. The vessel was so old and crude that destroying it would be an act of mercy. "Fire at will," he ordered. "Remove this obstacle." The first wave of plasma fire struck the Defiance's hull, and something impossible happened. The energy weapons, which had sliced through the modern human ships like a hot knife through butter, simply bounced off the ancient warship's armor. The thick layered plating absorbed the plasma and dispersed it harmlessly into space. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vexthal felt something approaching surprise. Commander Vexthal stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The plasma barrage that had destroyed dozens of human ships had struck the ancient vessel and done absolutely nothing. The primitive-looking warship continued its approach, completely undamaged. Kalenara ran a full analysis of that ship's hull composition, he ordered, his voice tight with confusion. How is it possible that our weapons had no effect? His tactical officer worked frantically at her console, running every scan. The hegemony had available. After several minutes, she looked up with worry in her 4 eyes. Commander, the ship's armor is unlike anything we've encountered before. It appears to be made of layered composite materials designed specifically to absorb and disperse energy. Weapons. Our plasma cannons are useless against it. Vexthul felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: uncertainty. The hegemony had built their entire military doctrine around energy weapons and phase technology. If those tools were ineffective, then they were fighting blind. Use the phase disruptors, he commanded. No solid matter can resist our ability to shift between dimensions. The Zephyrian fleet's most advanced weapons powered up reality bending. Devices that could phase through any physical barrier and strike at the heart of enemy ships. Energy beams that existed in multiple dimensions at once reached out toward the Defiance. But Admiral Kane had fought enemies like this before. During the colonial wars, humanity had faced the Kethmori, aliens who could shift their ships between dimensions to avoid attacks. The Defiance had been specifically designed to counter such tactics. ATLAS, activate dimensional anchors, Kane ordered from her command chair. Full power to reality stabilizers. The ancient warship's hull suddenly blazed with a different kind of energy, one that locked space itself into a fixed state. The alien phase disruptors struck the Defiance and found that they could not shift through dimensions anymore. The ship's reality stabilizers held everything in normal space, making the alien weapons behave like conventional energy beams. And conventional energy beams were exactly what the Defiance's armor had been built to stop. Impossible, Vexthul whispered as he watched his most powerful weapons fail completely. What kind of species designed ships like this? Admiral Kane smiled coldly as she watched the alien weapons strike harmlessly against her ship's defenses. The kind that has been fighting for survival since before your species learned to make fire. Danny, Amy, are our weapons ready? Weapons. Officer Danny Chun looked up from his control station with grim satisfaction. All railgun batteries loaded and ready, Admiral. Nuclear torpedoes are armed and targeted. Tactical Specialist Amy Foster nodded from her position. I have firing solutions on their command ships, Admiral. Their formation is tight, perfect for maximum damage. Kane studied the alien fleet arrayed before them. Over 100 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the modern human fleet possessed. But advanced did not always mean better prepared. The Zephyrians have made the same mistake that every successful conqueror makes, she said to her bridge crew. They've become so used to winning that they've forgotten how to adapt when their standard tactics fail. Fire all weapons. The Defiance spoke with the voice of pure destruction. Railgun batteries that had been silent for nearly 2 centuries roared back to life, sending solid projectiles racing through space at tremendous speeds. The tungsten rods, each one the size of a telephone pole, struck the alien ships with the force of small meteors. The results were devastating. The Zephyrian vessels, built for speed and energy efficiency, had never been designed to withstand kinetic impacts. Their hulls, which could phase through energy weapons, were helpless against simple pieces of metal moving at incredible velocity. The first salvo from the Oldasol, Defiance punched through 3 alien destroyers like bullets through paper. The ships exploded in brilliant flashes as their reactors were breached, sending debris cascading through the enemy formation. How are they doing this? Kalenara shouted over the alarms now sounding throughout the hegemony fleet. Their weapons are primitive, but they're cutting through our hulls like we have no armor at all. Bextel was beginning to understand the terrible truth. The humans had not built their ancient ship to fight other humans. They had built it to fight enemies exactly like the hegemony, enemies who relied on energy weapons and advanced technology. Every system on the Defiance was designed to counter their greatest strengths. All ships evasive maneuvers, he commanded. Do not let them target our engines. But the nuclear torpedoes were already on their way. Admiral Kane had chosen her targets carefully, aiming for the largest concentrations of enemy ships. Each torpedo carried the destructive power of a small star, and when they detonated, the results were visible from 3 star systems away. The first nuclear explosion consumed an entire squadron of Zephyrian cruisers. The second and third torpedoes struck moments later, turning space into a temporary hell of atomic fire and twisted metal. In the span of 30 seconds, the alien fleet lost over 20 ships. Commander Vexthul watched his fleet being destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Not fear of death, but fear of the unknown. What kind of species built weapons like this? What kind of minds could design a ship that turned their greatest advantages into weaknesses? Commander, we need to withdraw, Kalinara said urgently. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, but they're destroying us with ease. No, Vexthul replied firmly. The hegemony does not retreat. We adapt and overcome. Order all ships to surround that vessel. If we cannot destroy it with our weapons, we will overwhelm it with sheer numbers. The surviving Zephyrian ships moved to encircle the Defiance, their formation spreading out to attack from all angles. It was a sound tactical decision, one that should have worked against any normal opponent, but Admiral Kane had fought outnumbered before. During the Battle of Titan's Gate, her fleet had been surrounded by enemy forces 3 times their size. She had won that battle not through superior numbers, but through superior understanding of warfare itself. ATLAS, activate Fortress Protocol, she commanded. All power to defensive systems. We're going to show them how a real warship fights. When it's cornered, the Defiance suddenly stopped moving forward and began to rotate slowly on its axis. Its massive weapons batteries turned outward, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every approach. The ship became a floating fortress, its guns pointing in all directions. Lisa, how are our power levels? Kane asked Chief Engineer Lisa Park, now fully integrated with the ancient ship's systems, checked her readings. Reactors are running at 90%, Admiral. We can maintain this level of fire for hours if needed. The alien fleet attacked. From all sides at once, hundreds of energy weapons striking the Defiance simultaneously. But the old ship's armor held, absorbing punishment that would have vaporized a dozen modern vessels. In response, the railguns fired continuously, sending streams of kinetic projectiles into the alien formation. Space around the Defiance became a graveyard. Broken alien ships drifted past, their hulls torn open by weapons that cared nothing for advanced technology or dimensional tricks. The Defiance sat in the center of the destruction, like an ancient god of war, untouchable and terrible. Jake Morrison, watching from the auxiliary bridge where he had been assigned, could barely believe what he was seeing. This was not the clean, precise warfare that modern humans practiced. This was something older and more brutal. Warfare stripped down to its most basic truth, the ability to destroy your enemies before they destroyed you. Admiral, Amy Foster reported, enemy fleet strength is down to 60%. They're starting to break formation. Kane nodded grimly. They're learning that advanced technology means nothing if you don't know how to use it properly. Continue firing. We end this here and now. The battle raged on, and with each passing minute, it became clearer that that the impossible was happening. A single human ship, built with technology that was 2 centuries old, was defeating an entire alien armada through sheer determination and superior tactical thinking. Commander Vex Thul, his flagship damaged and his fleet in ruins, finally began to understand what his species had encountered. These were not the soft, peaceful humans that their intelligence had described. These were the descendants of warriors, and they remembered how to fight. Throughout human space, emergency communication channels buzzed with reports of the impossible battle taking place in the Kepler sector. Captain Helen Rodriguez, her ship badly damaged but still functional, watched through her sensors as the Mian, ancient human warship, continued its devastating assault on the alien fleet. "Communications, patch me through to Admiral Collins," she ordered. Her bridge was dark, except for emergency lighting, and half her crew was working frantically to repair battle damage. "He needs to see this." Fleet Admiral Gregory Collins appeared. On her screen, his face showing the strain of the worst military crisis in human history. Behind him, the command center was chaos as officers tried to coordinate rescue efforts for the survivors of the first battle. "Captain Rodriguez, what's your status?" Collins asked. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that old ship, the Defiance, it's winning. It's actually winning against the entire alien fleet." Collins stared at her for a moment. "Captain, that's impossible. Our sensors showed over 100 enemy vessels." "Admiral, I'm sending you the tactical data now. That ancient warship has been fighting for 6 hours straight, and it's destroyed at least 40 alien ships. Their weapons can't even scratch. It's armor." Collins looked at the data streaming across his screens and felt his understanding of warfare change completely. The readings showed energy signatures that were off the charts, explosions that could be seen from neighboring star systems, and most incredibly, a single human ship that was still fighting after taking punishment that should have destroyed it. 10 times over. "Captain, get me a direct communication link with Admiral Kane," he ordered. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Patricia Kane stood calmly among the controlled chaos of battle. Her ship shook constantly from alien weapons fire, but the ancient armor held firm. Around her, the crew worked with grim efficiency, loading weapons and coordinating attacks. "Admiral Kane, this is Fleet Admiral Collins," came the voice over the communication system. "We're monitoring your battle. What do you need from us?" Kane glanced at her tactical display, which showed the alien fleet still surrounding her ship like angry insects around a light. "Admiral Collins, I need you to understand something important. This battle isn't just about defeating these particular aliens. It's about sending a message to the entire galaxy." "What kind of message?" Collins asked. "That humanity has not forgotten. How to fight," Kane replied as another wave of railgun fire tore through an alien cruiser. "Your modern fleet is impressive, Admiral, but it was built for a peaceful galaxy. The Defiance was built for the galaxy as it really is, hostile, dangerous, and full of species that will take everything you have if you show weakness." The battle continued to rage around them. The Zephyrian fleet, now reduced to less than half. Its original strength was showing signs of desperation. Their tight formations had broken apart, and individual ships were attempting hit-and-run attacks on the human dreadnought, but Commander Vexthal was not ready to accept defeat. On the bridge of his damaged flagship, he studied the tactical situation with a calculating mind that had won him 17 star systems. The human ship was powerful, but it was still just one vessel against many. "Kalainara, analysis of their weapon reload times," he ordered. "Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it." His tactical officer worked quickly, analyzing the patterns of fire from the ancient human ship. After several minutes, she found what they were looking for. "Commander, their main weapons have a reload cycle of approximately 47 seconds. If we coordinate our attacks, We might be able to overwhelm their defenses during that brief window. Vexthul felt hope return. Signal all remaining ships. Synchronized attack pattern 7. We strike together during their reload cycle. But Admiral Kane had been fighting space battles since before most of these aliens were born. She recognized the change in their attack patterns immediately. Atlas, enemy ships are coordinating for a simultaneous assault, the AI reported. Recommend defensive countermeasures. Kane smiled grimly. Danny, Amy, prepare the main gun. It's time to show them what the Defiance was really built for. Deep in the belly of the ancient warship, machinery that had been dormant for decades began to come alive. The main weapon of the Defiance was not just another railgun. It was a kinetic bombardment system designed to crack planets, a weapon so powerful that it had only been used twice in the entire colonial wars. The weapon required enormous amounts of power, drawing energy from every system on the ship. Lights dimmed throughout the vessel as the main gun charged, its magnetic coils building up forces that could accelerate a projectile to near light speed. Lisa Park watched her engineering displays with growing concern. Admiral, we're pulling. Power from life support and navigation to charge the main gun. If this doesn't work, we won't have enough energy left to continue the fight. It will work, Kane replied with absolute confidence. Atlas, target their command ship. Maximum power. The alien fleet moved in for their coordinated attack, over 60 ships converging on the Defiance from all directions. It was a beautiful, tactical maneuver, one that should have overwhelmed any single opponent. Commander Vexthul watched his fleet close in and felt victory within his grasp. The human ship had fought well, but numbers would tell in the end. All ships, fire on my command. 3, 2, 1, fire. Hundreds of energy weapons struck the Defiance simultaneously, a barrage of destruction that lit up space like a small sun. For a moment, it seemed impossible that anything could survive such concentrated firepower. But when the energy dissipated, the ancient human warship was still there, scarred but unbroken, and its main gun was ready to fire. Fire, Admiral Kane said quietly. The main weapon of the Defiance spoke with the voice of absolute destruction. A tungsten rod the size of a small building, accelerated to 90% of light speed, crossed the distance to the alien command ship in less than a second. The impact was beyond description. The projectile struck the ethereal spear with so much force that it didn't just destroy the ship. It erased it from existence. The explosion that followed was visible from New Boston, a new star that blazed for several minutes before fading. Commander Vexthul had just enough time to understand what was happening before his ship and everything. And it was converted to plasma and scattered across several cubic kilometers of space. The destruction of their command ship broke something fundamental in the Zephyrian fleet. These were beings who had never known defeat, who had conquered system after system through technological superiority. The idea that a single primitive ship could destroy their entire command structure was beyond their ability to process. Panic spread through the alien ranks. Ships began to break away from the battle, their crews more concerned with survival than victory. The perfect discipline that had carried them through 17 conquests crumbled in the face of weapons they couldn't understand wielded by enemies they had underestimated. Admiral Kane watched the alien fleet begin to scatter and felt satisfaction mixed with exhaustion. The Defiance had taken tremendous damage during the battle. Hull breaches scarred its starboard side, and several weapon systems were offline. But it was still fighting, still protecting the human colonies behind it. Admiral, the enemy fleet is in full retreat, Amy Foster reported. Should we pursue? Kane considered for a moment, then shook her head. No, let them go. Let them carry word back to wherever they came from about what happens when you attack humanity. Captain Rodriguez, watching from her damaged ship, could barely believe what she had witnessed. Admiral Kane, on behalf of the entire Terran Defense Force, thank you. You saved us all. Kane's voice was tired, but determined when she replied, Captain, I didn't save you. I reminded you of something your generation had forgotten. Humanity survives not because we're the smartest or the most advanced, but because we're willing to do whatever it takes to protect our own. That hasn't changed, and it never will. As the last of the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them tailies of the terrifying human vessel that fought like a force of nature itself, the Defiance slowly turned toward the nearest human colony. The ancient warship was battered and scarred, but it had proven something important, that the warrior spirit of humanity was far from dead. 3 weeks after the battle, the Defiance limped into the orbital shipyards above New Boston. The ancient warship looked like it had been through hell, which it had. Hull plates were missing, weapon systems were damaged, and entire sections showed the scars of alien energy weapons. But it was alive, and more importantly, it was victorious. Admiral Patricia Kane stood on the observation deck of the shipyard, watching teams of engineers examine her ship. Next to her, Fleet Admiral Gregory Collins studied the damage reports. With amazement, the Defiance had taken punishment that would have destroyed a dozen modern vessels, yet it was still operational. Admiral Kane, I have to ask, Collins said, how did you know their weapons wouldn't work against your armor? Kane smiled slightly. Because we fought enemies like them before, Admiral. During the colonial wars, we faced 3 different species that used pure energy weapons: the Keth-Mori, the Veltar, and the Zephyrians. Yes, we had encountered them before, about 190 years ago. Collins looked surprised. You fought the Zephyrians before? A smaller fleet, only about 20 ships. They attacked the colony at Kepler Prime in 2198. We drove them off, but I always wondered if they would come back with more ships. Kane's expression grew serious. The Defiance was built specifically to fight enemies who relied on advanced technology. Every system, every weapon, every piece of armor was designed with one goal: to win against opponents who thought they were superior. Jake Morrison approached them, now wearing the uniform of a Terran Defense Force captain. His salvage ship had been destroyed during the battle, but Fleet Admiral Collins had offered him a new position, commanding one of the new warships being planned. Admiral Kane, the engineering teams want to know if you'll oversee the construction of the new fleet, Jake said. They're calling it the Defiance class. Kane nodded. I'll help, but only if we do it right. These new ships need to be more than just bigger versions of what you already have. They need to be built for war, real war, not the police actions you've been fighting. Lisa Park joined them, her arms full of technical specifications. She had been promoted to chief engineer of the entire shipyard project, tasked with combining the brutal effectiveness of old human military technology with the advanced systems of the modern era. Admiral, we've analyzed every system on the Defiance. She reported, the armor composition alone is revolutionary. We can replicate it, but it will make the ships much heavier and slower than our current designs. Good, Kane replied. Speed means nothing if you can't survive long enough to use your weapons. The enemy will adapt, Lisa. They'll study what happened here and develop new tactics. When they come back, and they will come back, we need to be ready. Captain Helen Rodriguez, her arm in a sling from the battle, walked up to the group. Her ship, the Horizon's Edge, was being completely rebuilt using lessons learned from the Defiance. The new design would be twice as heavily armored and carry weapons that could punch through any known defense. Admiral Kane, I've been thinking about what you said during the battle, Rodriguez said, about humanity forgetting how to fight. Were we really that unprepared? Kane considered the question carefully. Captain, your generation built a wonderful civilization. You have peace, prosperity, and technology that would have seemed like magic to people from my time. But you also built it assuming that the galaxy was a reasonable place, where conflicts could be solved through negotiation and compromise. She gestured toward the damaged Defiance. The universe is not reasonable, Captain. It's full of species, like the Zephyrians, who see kindness as weakness and peace as an invitation to attack. Sometimes the only language they understand is force. Fleet Admiral Collins had been listening to the conversation with growing understanding. Admiral Kane, I want to offer you a position. Head of the new Terran War College. We need someone to teach our officers how to fight real wars, not just police actions. Kane was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the stars. Admiral, I'm old. I've been fighting for most of my life, and I'm tired. But if it means protecting what humanity has built, then yes, I'll teach your officers everything I know. Over the following months, the Terran Defense Force underwent the most traumatic transformation in its history. The War College established on a moon orbiting New Boston became the training ground for a new generation of human military officers. Admiral Kane taught them the hard lessons learned from centuries of conflict. That superior technology meant nothing without the will to use it, that mercy was a luxury that could only be afforded after victory, and that the price of peace was eternal vigilance. The first of the new Defiance-class warships rolled out of the shipyards 6 months later. The used Defiance II, commanded by Captain Jake Morrison, was a perfect blend of old and new. It carried the brutal kinetic weapons and heavy armor of the original Defiance, combined with the advanced sensors and engines of modern human technology. Lisa Park had solved the weight problem by designing new fusion reactors that could power the heavier ships without sacrificing speed. The result was a vessel that could fight toe-to-toe with anything the galaxy could throw at them while still being fast enough to respond to threats across human space. But the most important change was not in the ships themselves, but in the people who crewed them. The new officers graduating from the War College were different from their predecessors. They understood that their primary mission was not exploration or diplomacy, but the protection of human civilization by any means necessary. Admiral Kane stood in her office at the War College, reading reports from the frontier. Scout ships had detected unusual activity in several star systems, suggestions that other alien species were taking notice of humanity's newfound military strength. Some seemed interested in peaceful contact, but others appeared to be preparing for war. Ryan Webb, now a commander and one of Kane's top instructors, entered the office with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, we're getting reports of at least 3 different alien fleets moving toward human space. It looks like word of our victory over the Zephyrians has spread. Kane nodded calmly. Let them come, Ryan. The galaxy spent centuries thinking humanity was weak, that we were just another species to be conquered or ignored. The Battle of Kepler changed that. Now they know what we really are. And what are we, Admiral? Ryan asked. Kane looked out the window at the new fleet assembling in space, dozens of powerful warships ready to defend human civilization. The Defiance, fully repaired and upgraded, sat at the center of the formation like an ancient monument to human determination. We are the species that refuses to die quietly, she said. We are the ones who will fight against impossible odds and somehow find a way to win. We are the children of Earth, and we remember how to be dangerous. The communication system chimed, and Captain Morrison's voice filled the room. Admiral Kane, this is the Defiance II. We're ready to depart for patrol duty. The fleet is standing by for your orders. Kane activated the communication system and spoke with the voice of someone who had never known defeat. Captain Morrison, take the fleet to the outer rim. Show our flag to anyone who wants to see it. Let the galaxy know that humanity is awake and we're ready for whatever comes next. As the human fleet moved out toward the stars, carrying with them the lessons learned from the greatest military victory in human history, Admiral Kane remained at her post. She was old, and she was tired, but she was also proud. Humanity had rediscovered something precious that they had almost lost, the knowledge that freedom was not free, and that sometimes the only way to preserve peace was to be ready for war. The Defiance led the fleet into the dark, its ancient hull gleaming, with new armor and bristling with weapons that could crack worlds. Behind it followed the new generation of human warships, each one a testament to the species that had looked into the abyss of space and decided to fight back. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of threats, and humanity, awakened to its true nature, was ready for all of them.